to a place that you don't know well. Let's say you're traveling.
Today, because of all the experience that I've been through so far.
Hi, I'm Dorian Lamb, and welcome to Season 2 of Start with the Close in Mind. In real estate, business, and life, the people who win aren't the ones who react. They prepare, they think ahead, they see the close long before the rest of the room does. After a year of conversations with top operators and decision makers, this season goes even deeper into what it takes to close deals the right way. We'll break down the strategies, the mistakes, the mindset, and the real stories that reveal how successful people navigate complexity and come out on top. Every episode brings insights from leaders who have been in the trenches and can show you the difference between hoping a deal closes and engineering the outcome from the start. This is Season 2 of Start with the Close in Mind. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Start with the Close in Mind. Today, we're talking about the modern agent, the modern property, the modern buyer, and of course, the modern advisor. New York real estate has changed. The access to information has changed through technology. Some expectations have changed. And because of that, what is good brokerage now is different than it was before. The old model was more transactional. The modern model needs to be very advisory driven, which is why I have my good friend today, Mukul Lachandani, who is somebody I've been lucky enough to know for many, many years. He's been deeply tied into the New York real estate market for over a decade and is even known as the modern agent. He understands the modern product, works with many local and foreign buyers, and approaches brokerage with a modern strategy that was the impetus to the launch of his brokerage, Undivided. Today, we're going to explore what real advisory brokerage looks like, how technology fits into the process, and whether it helps or hurts, and how all of this ties back to Start with the Close in Mind. Mukul, welcome to Start with the Close in Mind. Let's start with your journey and how it led to Undivided.
Historian, and thanks for having me here. I started in real estate because my parents back in 2000 wanted to buy a property in New York, and we were from Hong Kong originally. Growing up in Hong Kong, my parents would buy properties as part of their wealth building goals, and the experience was very straightforward. When my parents bought in New York, sight unseen, just on plans when the developer came to Hong Kong to show a new project, a new development, the agent promised the world. The sponsor said it was going to be a straight, easy close. 2 years later, when we're about to close, we get the notification to close, and the lender that was recommended by the developer, the sponsor, took our file and was gone, had disappeared. Now, as you know, once you have to have a notice to close, you have to go and close. If you don't close, you lose your deposit. So my parents, being in Hong Kong, sent me, who was just a freshly graduated from university, I was 20 years old, went to this closing. We're talking about, it was a $1.5 million deal back then, and 20 years ago. It was a 3-bedroom, actually. And I was in that closing for 6 hours. And I think you can appreciate that in your business. 6 hours is very unusual. Back then, they were using landline phones, calling different lenders, calling different title, and trying to figure out what to do. We had to scramble and get a secondary mortgage on top of the primary. The secondary mortgage had an interest rate of, get this, 16%. They had to pay a 16% mortgage just to close on the spot. And when after 6 hours, the broker walks in with their fur coat and picks up a 6-figure check and walks right out. And at that point, it shocked me. My family was treated, and made me realize that I want to get into this business one day. And when I do, I want to protect clients like my family never go through what they went through. And that is where we are today, 15 years later.
Wow. I mean, what an impact that can make in a negative way. Sorry that you had to go through that. And it really embodies what I meant when I said that brokerage before was very transactional. I mean, that's as transactional as you get. Not even there for you, no guidance, just there to, in essence, pick up their check. In a way, I'm very sorry that you had to go through that, but it helped you create what you've created through all the years and all the hard work you've put into it in creating Undivided and eventually representing people in the way that you feel that everyone should be represented. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming known? I made a reference to you as being the modern agent, and what modern means and What was that all about?
Sure. So my previous career business was in fashion. And even in fashion, I think I just always had this acumen of living a modern life and having a attraction to modern ways of doing things. I realized that there are, as people, as individuals, we can all live the way we want, especially in New York. You can live in many, many different directions and ways that you want. And I chose a modern way. And so back in 2008, when the market crashed, that's when I got into real estate. I saw a opportunity because at that point nobody was branding themselves yet as in real estate, and because I came from a fashion marketing background, I knew that to stand out in the marketplace, I had to brand myself to be different. And it was so new that no one understood it. Even the brokerages that I joined were like, "What is like? Why are you doing this?" Today, of course, every agent and every team wants to brand themselves, but back then it was such a new thing. And I knew that because of my history and my history of why I became an agent, the modern agent was doing things in a modern way, doing real estate in a modern way. And the assets that I gravitated towards, which are typically luxury condos and new developments, are modern homes. And so doing real estate in a modern way was what I was all about, and still am till today.
That's a great story. You also mentioned through your story just how people should properly be represented as well. Is there something behind that in terms of why you decided to launch Undivided with the Undivided name?
Yeah, so Undivided started 3 years ago when I finally branched off on my own. And Undivided, the name itself, people are like, what? Like, what is this name? Undivided, the name of the brokerage, is to provide undivided loyalty, attention, and service to our clients. And that is the premise, and that is what all of the teammates that we have in our organization, we focus with on every single day to make sure that we are aligned to our clients' goals and make sure that we walk them through to get them to their
Yeah. I don't know many people who are going to say no to loyalty and attention, right? And presence, right?
and we
So
we definitely do that every single day.
I was holding back some smiles before because you dated us with some of your anecdote in terms of just landlines, picking up landlines, making phone calls, an interest rate of 16%. And then, you even harkened back to 2008, which was the financial crisis. But, one of the things that is out there in terms of a narrative is with regards to technology and its impact with the buying process, the perception of how it is to buy. In many cases, that technology kind of helps you buy in a way that it hasn't, or in a way that you were never able to before, where you can literally shop in front of your computer and see hundreds or in some cases thousands of different things. How would you say that technology, because you are a firm believer in technology, how would you say that technology has influenced and impacted what you do and how you do it today?
Sure. So, and what you're referencing to is doom scrolling, and I'm also guilty of that. And I love real estate myself, so I tend to spend lots of hours scrolling through many, many homes. Technology has been great to democratize the industry. Had we not had the internet, I don't think I would have been in this industry because I believe in transparency. I believe in being able to see every home that's available on the market and having access to them as well. For me, I've always been ahead of the market when it comes to technology. I've always been thinking out of the box. Even now with AI, and a lot of people are worried about its effects on the real estate industry. Why do you need an agent anymore? But I will say that when you're going to make a purchase that is the one of the biggest purchases of your life. It's a hard asset. It's not so liquid. You want to make sure that you're with someone that's going to help you, right? Think of this. You're going to buy a $10 million home. Are you just going to go online, see something and just buy it from a website? No, you're going to want to make sure you're making the right financial decision. And that's when you have an advisor. And today, real estate advisor is not just someone that's sending you listings anymore. It's someone that really brings you value, that really shows you why a property is a good value investment, what are the possible issues that may be there, and having a local expert knows that. So today, because of all the experience that I've been through so far, I actually advise clients to reject most properties that we see because there are so many nuances, especially in the New York local market. Every property, they can be, you can have two apartments or buildings side by side. One will do well from a resale perspective, the other will be a doom. Even you can have an apartment side by side in the same building, and one will appreciate much better than the other one. And there are many, many nuances that goes to those variables. And if you're just looking online and doom scrolling, you will not have any of that visibility.
Yeah, one of the terms you use is local expert, and that's absolutely vital to the process because, one of the anecdotes I always give is when you go to a place that you don't know well, let's say you're traveling and you rely on your AI or website or technology to find the best hotel to stay, you may just choose either the cheapest one or the one that you feel is closest to where you want to go, but then you arrive only to find out that it's either in a bad part of town or it's actually in a place that's not as accessible as you would imagine it just because it was close to the city. So there's a lot of mistakes that can happen. And, you do work with a fair amount of foreign buyers as well. So the need for a local expert is, I think, is very vital to the process because you grew up in New York. You've been here for many, many years, decades, and you know how neighborhoods have changed. The perception of a neighborhood before can be completely different now, right? So the local expert is super important. But you mentioned AI, right? And we're talking about technology here. There's just this feeling that AI can solve everything for you. It's like I can have an AI agent. Outside of the local expert part of it, AI can't tell you who's a good developer and who's not, right? Does that fall into the category of local expert as well? I mean, I would imagine that you knowing how a developer performs locally in New York would dictate or give you an idea of how their finishes are. And it gives you an idea of what would relate and tie back to the end user buyer. Can you tell us about how AI has affected that process and if there's a right way to use it?
I think that so AI is an aggregator, right? It scrapes all public information online to give an answer. If you are a big developer with deep pockets, you can essentially put as much information online to steer AI into giving the answer that you wanted to give, right? A local expert that has local experience knowing how a buildings perform to be able to give the real information, you can't get that from AI. AI is just going to give you what is aggregated from the market, from whatever is publicly informed. So it's very important to have that distinction.
So, you know that the name of the show is Start with the Close in Mind. And I always like to give advice from that perspective, which is you and I have spent many years doing this in our respective lines of business. And I find that our biggest value is giving people advice on what they should do at the very beginning instead of finding out about it either too late or at the end. What would you say are your advices or advice points at Undivided for your clients from the buying perspective?
So who I am as a local expert from when I first started, I have certainly evolved leaps and bounds. And today, when I look at any property, when I work with a client, I'm always thinking about the exit. What that means is I'm always telling clients when we look at properties, will this property have a good resale value opportunity? Is this in a developed neighborhood or an up and coming neighborhood? Is the layout going to appeal to a future buyer when you do want to sell? Some buyers are like, I'm going to buy this and hold it for 20 years or, it's going to be for the rest of our lives. Life changes. People get married, people have kids, they have a job relocation. New York is a transient city. On average, people live here for 7 years. That means that on average, people will sell in 7 years. So you got to keep that resale in mind. And so when I help clients, I'm always thinking about the exit and what that plan is for my clients. And many times I'll say why an asset is not bad. I bring this up because now that I've been doing this for so long, I see homes that people have bought and have owned for 20 years or so, and the property has not appreciated at all, or sometimes they sell below what they paid for 20 years ago, even factoring inflation and all the closing costs. And I don't want that for my clients.
Yeah. I'm picking up on some of your methodology and, advising clients from the perspective of resale that's thinking two steps ahead, right? And I think that's super valuable. And another thing that you said, which is you often find your time, or you often find that you advise clients against actually buying the property. Could you tell us a little more about that? Because that would seem counterintuitive. At least in my experiences, most of the time I'm being told why I should buy it.
So let me give you one example. And this is actually something that may relate to new developments, which I know you work with a lot of sponsors as well. There is a phenomenon called the premium decay phenomenon, which states that some new developments, especially in mature neighborhoods, are typically priced at a multiple, let's say 2 or 3 times the average of the neighborhood. When that building, which is a brand new development, has after 5 years, it's technically not a new development anymore. It becomes a regular building, a regular luxury building. What happens is after that 5 year, if it's in a mature neighborhood where the average price per square foot is lower, you will actually see prices start to come down in that building every year after that 5 year mark. And most general public does not understand this or don't even know that this exists. And so this is why I always think about resale value, and I want to give my clients as much knowledge so they can make an informed decision. Look, if they love the building, they don't care. Some buyers are that way, but I care for my clients' investment and for their, it may be their nest egg, it may be their family or for their kids, for their future. And I don't want what happened to my family happen to my client.
That type of thinking with regards to value, that's super valuable as well. That, to the point, is very advisory. I know that there is something at Undivided that helps you with that. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that?
So we have used a lot of AI to build custom apps. So now we do things like scatter plots to find building trends, what's going on, what size home in a building is doing well. We even built a website for one building. Are you using AI where you can just enter your unit number? It knows if your unit number, if your unit has outer space, what floor it's on, which direction it's facing, north, south, east, or west, and spit out a valuation based on all these metrics to give you a pretty accurate valuation. But we use AI for all of this. So yeah, so we're always trying to be ahead, and we're always trying to bring more value to our clients.
That's amazing. That's really, really great to hear. Is there anything else? I believe you have something that is about to get launched. Do you want to tell the audience about that?
Yes. So based on the trajectory of our business, like you said, agents are more than just someone sending listings and making appointments. They are going into an advisory role. And what I've seen is that in different neighborhoods, some buildings do well, other buildings don't, especially new developments, modern luxury condominium. And so we're taking it a step forward, and we're launching a new program called the Undivided Value Index. And what that is that we're actually scoring buildings, luxury buildings in different neighborhoods in Manhattan, Brooklyn, parts of Queens, that will show based on metrics like walkability score, closeness to amenities, buildings' financial health, investability, rentability, and spitting out a score so that people can make informed decisions whether that building will be a good investment opportunity or not. And this is something that we are pioneering ourselves, and we'll be able to see it in a few weeks.
The Undivided Market Value Index. Everybody be on the lookout for that.
It's Undivided Value Index.
Sorry, the Undivided Value Index. Sounds like a tool everybody should be using, especially if you're looking in Manhattan, Queens, and I heard some parts of, or Brooklyn and some parts of Queens. Mickey, this is very insightful advice with regards to the evolution with things like technology and everything else, even in terms of style, with regards to how brokers and realtors should be advising their clients. What is something, though, I like to ask this, that is a common misconception about what you do?
So, because we are a small firm, we are a boutique brokerage. We've been around for 3 years. People assume that just because you go to a big company, that a big firm, a big brokerage with a lot of advertising dollars, that you're going to get this better value, better service, better knowledge. But that is a common misconception. It comes down to the individual agent or broker, not the agent. Because the truth is that an agent in any firm can easily park their license at any firm. It does not mean that that agent actually has the experience and wherewithal to provide that advisory level knowledge to their clients. And that is one misconception, is that sometimes I have to explain that, and people just go with the big brands and they don't get it. And then they come back to me when it doesn't work out.
That makes sense. There's value in working with the true experts and not somebody who's just, as you had mentioned, just sending listings or just relying on heavy advertising dollars. It really does make a difference. And it does
Well,
show
the
with,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that we don't take every client on. We really provide undivided attention to each client. So we don't take every client on. And if you are serious about your real estate goals, whether it's buying or selling, when you work with us, you have a team that is experienced and dedicated to making sure that you get to your goal.
That is much more valuable. Just everything, all about how you go about even advising clients. You actually advise on certain properties not being a good fit. You just mentioned you don't take on every client. You advise from a point of thinking with the end in mind, right? Because at some point you're not living here forever. You're gonna have to sell, so resale matters. And you've created the right tools to support that, like the undivided value index, right? So I thank you, Mickey, for giving us your time today and dropping your insight with us. How can the audience find you and see if they get qualified by you?
So the easiest place is you can find me on YouTube. You can just search for Undivided Access. We drop a video every week and we tour some of the beautiful new developments across the city. And you can find my contact information on there.
All right, great. So, Mickey, thank you again. Everybody, look up Undivided. Find Mickey. If you want the right advice, go to him. If you want the wrong advice, there's many options that you have. Once again, thank you for joining Start with the Close in Mind, and look out for the next episode. Be well.